Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. All right, guys, so you know how we do this. We get started with Q&A and then we get into today's news. So today's Q&A question is, Sabby, would you be interested in bringing on Brianna Joy Gray? Absolutely. It's funny, that's the third time I got that question this week, you guys. That's the third person that's DM'd me that same question. But of course, like, absolutely, I'd be honored to have Bri on. She's definitely one of the people that I follow. I started following during Bernie's campaign. So it would definitely be an honor to have her on. I do need to reach out. I am bombarded with a list of people that I still need to reach out to that I haven't done yet because I've just been so busy, you guys. Ever since like this show like started off kind of slow, starting to pick up speed a little bit, and now like I get a lot of DMs. So that's why I was telling you guys before, if you DM me and you haven't heard from me, just give it some time because it's just me like doing this. So like I don't have someone that like checks my messages or anything like that. Like I do all of those things. So that, along with working my regular full-time job, I've been really busy, but definitely will reach out. I'm just, geez, man, I need an assistant. I need an assistant for real, you guys. All right, so today's news. So Cornel West has officially resigned from Harvard University. This does not come as a surprise to me. It's interesting because just a couple of days ago, I did a video about Hannah Jones and her tenure situation at UNC. And now we have Cornel West resigning, after Harvard refused to give him tenure. I'm going to get into the details about that in just a second, but I do want to remind everybody that I do work in higher ed right here in the Boston area. I am very familiar with Harvard. I know people that work there. I know people that have left Harvard. So I'm going to show you the video, the news clip about this. And then I'm going to tell you about some of the things that I've seen with Harvard, what I can tell you. There's some things that I can't talk about, but I'm going to tell you what I've seen and what I've experienced and why I believe that this is happening. But watch this.
Longtime activist and prominent professor Cornel West has quit Harvard University, sharing what he calls a candid resignation letter. He posted the letter on social media. In it, West accuses the school of, quote, intellectual and spiritual bankruptcy. West says he had been denied tenure and paid less than he was 15 years ago. He wrote, "The shadow of Jim Crow was cast in its new glittering form, expressed in the language of superficial diversity."
His letter came a week after prominent journalist Nikole Hannah-Jones said she would not join the University of North Carolina faculty after her prolonged tenure dispute. Let's bring in NBC News national reporter Janelle Griffith for more. Janelle, good morning. Thanks for being here. So what did West say were the reasons for his resignation? Obviously, Joe just read a little bit of what he wrote, but tell us more about this. And then also, what have we heard, if anything, from Harvard?
Yeah, so he has accused Harvard of basically prioritizing its public image and putting its public image and donors above the faculty and the students. And as it relates to him specifically, he said that the university does not value him and that they have disrespected him and that he felt like he had enough and therefore he's resigning. Harvard has not spoken out publicly. I reached out to them for comment for my story and they declined to comment. So we don't know what their position is. They have not responded to any of his claims.
Quit nearly 20 years ago. Remind us, why was that, and what did he have to say about how he was treated when he returned in 2017?
So he did quit in 2002, and at that time he said that the reason why he quit was because he had a public spat with the president at the time, Warren Summers. He returned recently in the last few years, and he said that he was denied tenure, but he had hoped that he would eventually be granted tenure. And the significance of tenure is that it provides essentially job security. It's a distinction given to professors, which prevents schools from being able to fire you without cause. And he said that he suspects the reason why Harvard may have denied him tenure or rebuffed his request for tenure is either his age or potentially because he has expressed public support for the Palestinian cause.
Do we know what's next for him? What's next for Cornel West?
He's actually returning to the Union Theological Seminary in New York City, where he was hired at 23 years old. And he has said that he believes that they will be more welcoming to someone of his caliber and who wants to teach the teachings that he has.
Okay, so I want to talk about a couple of things that was mentioned in that clip. The first one where Cornel West says that Harvard is putting their donors first. That is very much true. I want to explain to you how this all works. So at some of these elite academic institutions, a lot of people assume that the president of the university is the one that sets the tone, is the one that makes a lot of the decisions. That's actually not true. It's the donors. And Harvard has a lot of corporate donors. So essentially, what tends to happen is you have people that work at these universities. Their job is to go and meet donors and convince them to continue to donate to the school. That's the actual position at these universities that people have. Sometimes, if a donor does not like the message that the university is sending, if they don't like the message that maybe someone who works at the university is sending, they can say, I'm not going to renew my donation. And that's problematic for the university because that's where they get a lot of their funding from. So if you have a lot of corporate donors, there's a lot of like big name CEOs that went to Harvard. There's also a lot of politicians that went to Harvard. Obama is an example. So these are the people that are actually running the operation. But behind the scenes, you just don't get to see it. So essentially, if you have someone like Cornel West that speaks out in support of Palestine, Harvard is going to have an issue with that because their donors are likely to have an issue with that. And I can pretty much guarantee you there were probably donors that spoke out about that. I know how it works, right? To give you an example, Mike Bloomberg donates to Harvard. Stop and Frisk Bloom donates to Harvard. Did you know that Bloomberg actually has a program named after him at Harvard? I kid you not. I kid you not. This is why you got to talk to people that work in education, man. This is why you got to listen to people who work in education. So if you have those types of people that are funding the university and they may not be on board with someone who's a prominent figure like Cornel West speaking out in favor of Palestine instead of Israel, they're going to say something about that. And then that's problematic for Harvard because then Harvard is like, oh, I may not get donations from them next time. See, people look at universities and they see them as schools. But I'm here to tell you that these elite academic institutions are very corporate. It's all about money. The board of trustees, the president has to answer to them. All about money. So with that being said, when you have someone like Cornel West, who is very outspoken, who has been involved in activism, who has strongly, come out in support of Palestine, who was also a part of Bernie Sanders' campaign. And I can tell you, Harvard was not on board with Bernie Sanders. Some of the students may have been, but as a university, they want someone corporate in just like Joe Biden, not Bernie Sanders. So you have all of those elements at play. And then you also have the fact, and I brought this up in my previous video about Hannah Jones, that he's Black. And I'll continue to tell you guys the way that Black faculty are treated at these elite institutions. You can have phenomenal research. All of the students can love you. But if you don't play the game that they want you to play, they will treat you in such a way that they're treating Hannah Jones, the way that they're treating Cornel West. This is what they will do. Not to mention, some of these same people, they still have this mindset. And I said this previously, they still have this mindset that if they have that one Black faculty member in the department, they're all set for diversity. And I told you guys, that's not diversity, that's tokenism. There is a certain way that Black faculty are treated at these institutions. And I want to say to you, if this is how they treat Cornel West, how do you think they would treat someone who's lower on the totem pole and is also Black, someone who is not faculty? So Cornel West posted his resignation letter, and there are two things in that letter I want to point out. So let me go to that really quick. Listen to this. With a few glorious and glaring exceptions, the shadow of Jim Crow was cast in its new glittering form, expressed in the language of superficial diversity. That is what I was telling you guys about. It's superficial diversity, it's tokenism. They don't really appreciate us. I'm going to go down to another part here where he mentions Palestine. I was promised a year sabbatical, but could only take one semester in practice. And to witness a faculty enthusiastically support a candidate for tenure, then timidly defer to a rejection based on the Harvard's administration hostility to the Palestinian cause was disgusting. I try to tell you guys, Harvard is not standing with Palestine, they are standing with Israel. Again, that's who their donors support. Towards the end of this letter, when the announcement of the death of my beloved mother appeared in the regular newsletter, I received two public replies, just as that of my colleague, Dr. Jacqueline Olga Cook Rivers, who received none when her blessed mother died. Any ordinary announcement about a lecture, award, or professional advancement received about 20 replies. This kind of narcissistic academic professionalism, cowardly deference to the anti-Palestinian prejudices of the Harvard administration, and indifference to my mother's death constitute an intellectual and spiritual bankruptcy of deep depths. In my case, a serious commitment to veritas requires resignation with precious memories, but absolutely no regrets. And this is exactly what he should have done. Good for Cornel West. Guys, I have a lot of, admiration for Cornel West. I love his work. I support what he does. And to see them just basically, I can't say the word here, but to crap on him the way that they have, and to treat him in such a way as if he is insignificant and the work that he has done does not matter just because he disagrees with who they support with the Israel-Palestine conflict. It is absolutely disgusting. It is gross. And anybody who is sitting here backing Harvard for their decision for doing this should be ashamed of themselves. I do not support Harvard's decision at all. People can call me out on it if they want to. That is absolutely fine. But we got to back each other here. I told you guys how these institutions work. Stop telling yourself they're schools. They're very corporate. They're businesses. They're all about money. It's a shame what Harvard did to Cornel West. But it's not surprising. My message to Black people who are thinking about working at these elite institutions, we need to work at places where our talent is celebrated, where our talent is accepted and appreciated, not at places where we are tolerated.